As I'm checking Shannon here and I'm checking for her subsystems, the parameters, what's happening in her system, I'm like reading Braille here. I'm palpating, I'm feeling, I'm sensing what's going on in each of these different systems. I'm linking that up to what's happening in her life, right? So I know from my conversation with Shannon before she laid down on the table that she was just home for the holidays. And going home for the holidays, as we know, is a great test really to see where we're at in our capability to navigate like sometimes challenging conversations, being around, you know, whether it's parents or whether it's siblings or just some of the challenges that everyone is aware that oftentimes we have with families. So since the last time I saw Shannon, it was before the holidays, now it's after the holidays, and we were talking about what her experience was going home. And so what came up in this conversation is that when she was young, growing up, her mom was really quite like OCD and very, very structured and very uptight about everything being neat, everything being perfect. And when she went home for the holidays, she recognized that there was a moment where there was a couple leaves on the floor and her mom just like lost it and like made everyone like get out of the house because it was like overwhelming. She was so upset that things were disorganized. And so that energy, we were talking about that energy being so intense in childhood and throughout growing up, where there's this like constant intensity if she colored outside the lines, if she was not following her mom's like rule structure, because her mom is very actually OCD and would get overly focused on everything being a certain way. So what it contributed to was a chronic pattern of vigilance and protection that shows up in the passive system. And it showed up when I first started working with Shannon. Every time I would start working with her, I would feel her passive system, which is the ligaments, the fascia, the skeleton, the bony structures, and it felt rigid like a metal rod. And there was very low muscle tone. And she had this chronic pattern where energy of trying to contain or keep it together was really primarily focused in that passive system, which is a system that is about survival. So it's about life force, keeping it together, containing the life force so that you like can make it through rather than feel all the feelings you're having. And as a child, if like the feelings are so big and so intense and so charged, the field that you're growing up in, if you have a parent that's manic or bipolar or very OCD or very, very controlled or controlling, then you can develop this vigilance and this rigidity inside you because it's so scary to have a barrage of that energy if you do something that upsets the parent. So that was the pattern that was so dominant with Shannon. And so major progress is happening where I palpate the system now, and there's rigidity in the tissue, but there's also muscle tone, there's active muscle tone, which tells me also that there's some freeze mode going on that got triggered when she was home for the holidays, but there's also some activity in the muscle system that's got some emotional tone, so she's not completely dissociated or checked out and just in vigilance. She's in more of a freeze where she's not totally disconnected and in what we'd call a dorsal vagal state, where she just shut down and shut off, which was what was happening in the past. She's engaged, but there's still that freeze mode going on because there's a stiffness and a rigidity in her passive system. So I'm taking that all into account. So when I'm just palpating and I'm feeling what's going on in her body, I'm not just palpating for what the physical tissues are feeling like. I'm actually linking that to what's going on in her life and what is going on in her life and what might have happened in the past that would contribute to that being a chronic pattern. So that's the thought process as I'm going through the palpation. And then I'm going up to the cervical spine, I'm feeling here, and there's two bands of, it's about the thickness of my pinky finger, and it's like very ropey and fibery, and it feels very charged. It feels like an overstretched rubber band, which is a quality we associate with emotional tone. So that tells me that there's some current and some recent emotional charge going on, some fight-flight activity that's happening in her system. And there's another factor that's going on that I know right now that she just put in her 30-day notice for her rent. And she's going to be moving, but she doesn't know quite exactly where and how it's going to work out. She's got a house that she's got up for sale, but she's got to move back to, and She took it off the market and she's putting it back on. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. She might be moving out of state, out of California. And so all of these things are factoring into creating this like environment of more uncertainty and more emotional intensity for her. So that's currently what's going on. So when I'm thinking about now proceeding and doing this session with her, I'm keeping in mind that she's in transition. Her body has like held her in a more freeze mode because it's a bit overwhelming and there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So she's just trying to get through. She was just home with her mom for the holidays and it was very triggering, and it brought up the early childhood experience of if things get out of control or I don't do things perfectly, my mom's going to react. And then she was in this chronic vigilance mode. So like that's somewhat triggered right now, but she actually did really well because her system is much more engaged and integrated than she had been in the past, even after just coming back from visiting her family. So I'm gauging that, hey, there's progress because I can see that your system is integrating and it's more connected and there's more available energy than there was in the past, even after going to the place that's the most challenging. So that's one of the ways I'm also gauging that there's progress. So now as I get into the session and I begin to see how I'm going to support and serve her, I'm thinking about, does she need more connection right now? She's actually relatively connected. Is it in the cycle of where she's in the healing process? Is it more about transformation? Is she like in motion? Yes, she's in motion. Is she dealing with things more effectively than she was in the past, like going home for her holidays with her family? Yes, she is, because she's in a more integrated, connected state coming back. That's also a sign that she's like in motion and transformation and forward movement is happening. And there's this high passive tension in the system, which is more recent, which tells me that there's a little bit of connection needed too. So it's like I want to start with making sure that we create more connections. She connects to her body. She comes more into the present moment, but then I want to help her be resourced to move forward in her life and help her feel more supported in the uncertainty, more supported in being with the unknown. And if her system is more energized and she's got more available energy in her life force, she's going to feel more grounded, more connected in the present, and being able to be more grounded and centered in the midst of a lot of change is going to support her nervous system and her being to be able to move forward with more ease and more grace. So I'm also thinking about grace, like in the midst of all this uncertainty and all this change, how can I support her in bringing more of the experience of ease and grace and allowance of the unfolding and the emerging of what's going on, rather than trying to control it, because she's already taken the steps. She knows she's already put her 30-day notice in. She knows she's got the place, she knows where she's moving to, but she doesn't know when the house is going to sell or how long that's going to take or how long she's going to be there. It's a change in environment, change with friends and who she's around, change, and a lot of change. So can I bring more grace into the mix by going out into the higher parts of the field, which would allow more of the experience of it's all okay. Even when it's so uncertain and intense, it's all okay. So these are all elements that are coming in before I even start to work with her, and that's shaping how I'm going to approach working with her. So let's get into the actual session here. So identify where I'm going to go, where I'm going to make the contact, because again, it's energy, the subtle energy in the subtle body, and the physical body. I have to find an access point or access points where I'm going to actually integrate through the body. So I found my points of access I'm going to go to. And now I'm going to go into priming the system. So we're going to go out into the field here, into the root, into the crown. And this is just helping create more coherence and more expansion in the system. And here. And here. Good. Okay, so now I go in to make the contact where And I'm making the contacts from these higher field, which is connected into more of where we're going to find that experience of grace. We go out into this infinite field, out beyond this time-space dimension. We bring in more in the midst of a time of significant change where things are changing fast, there's a lot of uncertainty. If we can have a feeling or an experience of it's all going to be okay, somehow there's a divine timing to all of this, where there's a universal timing that is working out, and I'm right where I need to be, and I just one step at a time, one day at a time, just moving forward and being here present right now. That is where I'm integrating this. I'm bringing that expanded consciousness, and even just speaking to it, she breathes deeper. And then I'm bringing that to remind her at the physical level that grace is available. This pattern I'm working with, the C2 vertebra involved, has also a correlation with overriding what one is feeling in order to keep it together and just get through. And use the mind, because the feelings are big and the feelings feel oftentimes scary. So the mind comes in, and that's this adaptation pattern that is very common in the culture, because so many people are having big feelings and not connecting to those feelings, and then they're just trying to figure it out and work through it. So we want to just make it easier for her to feel and experience, and then through that feeling and through that connection, she can identify more what she needs and then take action where she needs to take action, or stop pushing or stop doing when she's overdoing, because it might be easier sometimes to do than feel. And I think a lot of people might relate to that. But she is in motion. So I go back and I palpate, and just through those contacts and through working in the field around the body, the passive system, which is the spinal, in this case the structure of her spine, is significantly softer. It's like melting. It's like her body is thawing out. That freeze mode is starting to thaw out, and this parasympathetic nervous system, which is that part of you that kicks in when you're coming out of fight or flight, resting, relaxing, opening, softening, it's deepening. It's spontaneous. She's not trying harder to breathe. It's just, that's what happens when you move into ease. You breathe, you relax, you let in. It's spontaneous. She's not trying harder to breathe. It's just, that's what happens when you move into ease. You breathe, you relax, you let down. And so I'm going to support that continuing to happen. I'm going to go back and make another contact. Now here. And just initiating a stimulus here that helps her identify where there's more ease, where there's more connection, where she can open, and continuing to support that. Working these oscillators around the crown here. Oscillating, anything that's oscillating is rocking subtly or vibrating. And when you have more regions of a system rocking or vibrating in sync with each other, like they're moving at different rhythms and then they click in and they're in sync, that's what's called entrainment. And the more in sync and the more entrained a system is, the more coherent. And the more coherent a system is, the more it operates efficiently and effectively with less wasted energy. And that's what we want to support her with right now. Less wasted energy in the midst of a lot of change, so she can be grounded, centered, connected, and using her energy for progress rather than spinning out, spiraling, and going into adaptation, because it's hard to deal with the amount of change that's happening. But that's true for every human being. When things are changing quickly, we tend to go into survival or protection mode to try to stabilize ourselves, which is what the passive system is about, holding it all together. But it's possible to do it another way. It's possible to, rather than try to freeze it and hold it all together, to go with it. To go with it and to be more resilient means to be able to have the stress happen, but then navigate the stress with more grace and more ease, because you can recover, you can find your center, and then you can say, bring it on, baby. Let's go. Bring it on. I got this. I can do this. And that's really, Shannon is relatively, she's quite connected right now. And so there's a lot more availability to move into the emotional system and start to move into that energy of, hey, let's go forward. Let's do this. So I'm going into the C2 vertebra. I'm just going to observe for a moment. So I'm just watching her breathing. And she's just breathing more deeply and more fully through her entire spine. And breath moving through different regions of the body effortlessly shows that that part of the system is connected, it's online, it's integrated. If you can't breathe into an area, if it doesn't move when you breathe, it's a sign that there's a kind of disconnect, or there's a lack of integration. And so we get a more coherent, more fluid quality that starts to emerge when the system starts in training, becoming more connected. And we start to see it happening. She's finding this through me showing her in the field around the body. She's finding that connection in her body right now. She's actually you're going to start to see how there we go, right there. She's starting to move in her shoulders, in her spine, in her back. And that's spontaneously emerging. That's not something that she's just trying to do. It's something that is just happening as a product of more coherence. It's like this body will readjust itself to find coordination and stay in a more fluid, self-organizing state. That's so much more efficient. It's so much more effective to be living that way than to be locked and stuck in a pattern of adaptation. But if we're having a life experience where it feels overwhelming and we can't deal and it feels like everything's too intense or things are changing too fast, we'll go into protection, because that's just the nature of what a system under stress will do, unless you've developed the capacity, the capability. The capacity is there, but the capability to coordinate. And that's something that through this process and this work, she's learning how to do. So that more stress, more tension that would be building up in the past, with more stress, tension would be building up, but now more stress is happening, and it's like, okay, I'm affected, but I can move it quickly and move on. So I'm going to move now to, I'm going to have her turn on her back. So go ahead and turn over onto your back. And so I've got her now on her back, and I'm going to be working to help support the expansion of the heart region physically, not just metaphorically, but physically, and engage the heart and these other areas that are oscillating. The heart actually is a center of oscillation. Matter of fact, it has the capability to be the primary center of oscillation, and it can lead the whole system. So like leading with the heart requires you to be open and to be receptive and to be connected to yourself so that you can connect into the world. And so I'm going to support her in connecting to herself, opening up even further to connect to her heart, and then she can step forward into everything that's going on in her life with more centeredness, but also more compassion, more love, more kindness, more empathy, all the things that go with a heart that's online. So I'm going to support that expansion and lifting and opening of the heart, not just metaphorically, but literally and physically. And this is in the next step of the session here. So we're going to open here. One more time. We're stroking the clavicles. It already starts to connect, because this is already happening. I'm just supporting it happening. I'm helping the coordination by making some contacts at these very specific spots, supporting her body, continuing to open here, finding these little vortex areas behind her heart, and I'm right there. So we're starting to see this expansion that's happening, this lifting that's happening. And this is actually a process that is emergent and that will happen with anyone who's opening and going more ventral vagal. There'll be some element of the jaw opening, the throat opening, the upper chest, the heart, the front of the body opening, the arms coming out, because that's a system that's opening to embrace the world again versus contracting and protecting and holding it all in. And so this is something that I'm supporting happening, but it's also just a spontaneous and natural emergent property of a human being opening to more ease and more safety. Because when we feel safe, we open. And more people, more open is a safer world, really. And the awareness is developing too, so her system and Shannon can be more attentive and aware and attuned to when she does need to be in protection, and when she does need, when it is like an environment in a place where she can be very, very open, and she can discern, okay, right now I need to be in a little bit more protected state, because is every situation and every circumstance always safe? No, there are some places and parts of the world in different situations where you need to be more guarded. But if you're walking around guarded because of childhood, from past trauma or experiences that you had from visiting your family a week ago, and you're still carrying that, that's not allowing you to be present, grounded, centered in the moment, and open. So we want to support that. She can move through things quickly, be able to assess when she needs to protect, and when, if the baseline can be more open, that changes your life. And we're seeing this. The jaw is very connected into the vagus, the throat. When someone opens and relaxes their face and their throat and their jaw, everything starts to open up. There's something in the intonation, the sing-songy voice of someone who's like relaxed. You think about a nursery rhyme or a lullaby, or someone who's singing to you when you feel like safe and open. It's called prosody. And it's this like rhythmical sing-songy nature that can only really emerge when someone feels relaxed. And so what might be able to express is some more of the intonation, the tone, the energy that has been held in the throat and in the jaw, and then we get a more natural, oftentimes like a sigh or a sing-songy, I was holding so much. But that's a product of the vagus, of the ventral vagal state starting to emerge. So here. And now we get a little more sound coming in. More sound expression, because the emotional system's kicking in. There's more of an expression of what was held. We're supporting here the system discharging energy, but in a very productive and in a very efficient and very focused way. But it's also natural. It's emerging. It's emerging out of a system opening up, and that's just what happens when a human being is opening. There's still energy that's holding. I want to get that oscillation in this area starting to be a little more rhythmical and fluid. There can be a vestige of attachment to a pattern of adaptation that is locked in a certain region. In this case, it was in her upper neck. And so if that's locked, and I can get it to start to freely move more precisely, unwinding, then it unravels through the whole body. And the anchor point becomes the access point. And we're starting to see more stillness and more open. Notice her heart, chest is still open and expanded. Her neck is in more extension. The jaw is more relaxed. She's also got her hand here on that left shoulder, which is kind of in the region around, connected to the heart. The more in defense and protection someone is, the less availability you have to work with their system in this more subtle way. So what happened here is that as we've been progressing, I'm able to work more precisely off of her body, physically off of her body, and the response is more, and she's more engaged now with what I'm doing off her body because she's more open to receiving that input. We're moving in this session from a state of more freeze mode where there was tension, there was some protection going on, and there was like tension that she couldn't really shake or hadn't really discharged or dissipated since the holidays. She's got forward momentum in her life. She's got lots of change happening. And here she is on the table, opening, expanding, and being able to embrace and move into this like new territory here with more expansion and more freedom. And that is more rare, that people in the midst of a lot of changes that are pretty stressful are open, centered, grounded, connected. And so we're increasing that kind of capability and capacity to be more also resilient, to be able to take it on, to like work with it and like move through it and say, kind of bring it on, not necessarily take it on, but bring on whatever's happening, move through it, and then next. How's your head doing?
No, good. There's got pressure on my third eye.
So put your hand there. Take a breath in. And then let out the sound, just a sound that vibrates or resonates or activates right through that area. And take it up even higher pitched, like up into your brain, up and through like the frequency, like go right up into the area between your eyebrows. A little higher, 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 higher. There. So as her system is opening, as the system is coming more what we call ventral vagal, as she's getting more connected, she can actually begin to use tone or sound to, in this case, I had her match the frequency of an area or region. You're sending a sound wave, vibrating that region so that you can actually find the energy that's been stored there. So we had to match the frequency. We had to match the tone with the tone that was vibrating there, and then connection can happen, and then it becomes an organic expression. So even through the process of what we did leading up to her being able to make that connection, we created the environment in her system that gave her the capability to connect with that more easily. And again, all of this, the whole entire session, is not about doing something to her. It's about curating or helping and supporting the environment within and around her that is going to help her make that connection with herself so that she can carry that forward in her life and that she can be connected moving through the world. Good job matching that. And usually it's like you get right to the end. You get right to the end of the range where you're like, I don't have any more, and then that's when you oftentimes hit the actual tone. It's got to be an exact match, and the reason why it would be hard, oftentimes it's hard to connect to a frequency or tone in the body, is because that frequency has an emotional charge to it that we're trying to avoid. So there's this desire unconsciously usually to avoid the feelings. So what we feel is the pressure or the intensity, but it's physical rather than the experience of the actual energy, which is liberating. But you have to hit that threshold in order to get access to it, because otherwise you're just making sounds that aren't meeting it.
Right.
So if the tone is ee, and you're like and it's not ee, you won't get the release. It could be a lot lower, a lot less like of a high-pitched frequency, or it could be a lot like softer or like quieter of a sound, but there's a sense of ease and a sense of that's it. Or, in your case, a burst of emotion. And that could be really any region of the body, oftentimes areas of injury, areas around areas of injury, or places that have been chronic pain. And if we can find the place where our body allows us to, kind of lets us in, and then we get to reconnect, and then it's like, what's the quality, what's the sound, what's the frequency that matches that feeling. So we're going to let that assimilate, and then that will be the end of the session, but the beginning of the continuation of this process, because it's not going to end right when she gets up off the table. It's going to continue because she's now in the rhythm that was not being connected with. So Shannon, we just finished the session, and I was talking through about some of the things that were going on in your life and kind of the circumstances now, your past, your history. And then we moved from this more of a freeze mode that your body was in, but not the shutdown that was happening in the past, but definitely there was some, tension built up after going home for the holidays. But with all these changes happening, with the move that you're going through, the transition that you're in, and then getting off the table, what do you experience with like what is happening for you, or what is happening inside you with this work for you, like this particular session? What would you communicate about like what the benefit is, or what you feel happening, or do you know?
I feel great.
Okay. All right.
I feel great.
Yeah.
Despite everything that's happening, I should be more in a shutdown, but it ebbs and flows. Like this morning, I was like, I feel like just going for a run and never coming back, like Forrest Gumping it.
Yeah.
And
so that's part of that. That is very common in that freeze mode. The freeze mode is like, this is all overwhelming, and I just want to escape.
Right.
But like the shutdown mode, which was happening in the past, you were actually, that's where you actually are like collapsed, and like you don't want to even run away.
Right.
Because like fight, flight, freeze, at least there's still activity there that is like, hey, I gotta do something. So that's actually a positive. The fact that you wanted to run away is an improvement over just collapse.
Right, just laying on the couch and just not doing anything.
But going from how you felt about wanting to just run away and just like run away from your life to now. Yes.
So now I just feel like more just happy about it. Even though it's going to be a lot of work, it's very uncertain. I just have the faith now that the divine has a plan for me, and I don't know what it is. And do I have to pick up a move and go back to Colorado for this period of time? Then great. But if a miracle happens between now and the 31st, which it could, then I could stay, or I could go somewhere else. I'm not sure. So I'm just open and trying to think of more of the positives now, instead of like, this is happening to me. Yes, I feel tired. My soul feels very tired. I just feel like I don't get reprieve. It's like one lesson after another, and I'm just like, so like, when am I gonna get a break? But I'm not in victim mode where this is happening to me. I'm like, okay, this is another thing that I have to just be like water. Be like water.
Wow. So what you're describing is very consistent with what the objective was in working with you, because we brought in a connection to the higher field, which is like associated more with the experience of grace and just being held, and then brought it to more safety and connection and groundedness in your body, so that you feel more capable and able to just navigate what is right now. And it would be amazing if it's super easy and it all just flows like water, but if it's more challenging, it sounds like you're like, okay, I'll just
go around the rock and just keep going. So one day at a time, and just that's all I can do right now. And so I'm starting, instead of to just always ruminating and thinking these thoughts, now I'm like, go within and go sit by a tree and meditate and open up your connection to the divine to get those answers, instead of doing, which it's just spinning your wheels and nothing happens.
And the doing was the pattern. That was the adaptation pattern that was going on, where you typically would go into the mind, which is what you historically have done, and try to do more and to like figure it out, and in a way escape through going into thinking. Where what you're describing now is about staying more in the feeling, going with, flowing with it, and what will happen, what will emerge is things that will support you because you're more connected. So going to sit by a tree for you and meditating, that's a positive. Like knowing what to do or what not to do will emerge from more connection. And so that was part of the objective as well, is like support connection with more grace, so that what you need to do or not do can emerge more organically. And it sounds from what you're describing that's happening.
Yeah. So I feel like, yeah, bring it, I guess. Like I can handle
Success.
it. Yes, thank you.
Awesome.